Okay, so today you guys will be creating histograms. Look like this. Very similar to a bar graph, right? They both have bars going up. A few differences. Okay. Bar graphs are usually reserved for non-numerical categorization, like how many were red, orange, yellow, purple, whereas histograms is more numeric, like how many minutes. Okay. As you can see, there's a range here. This is 66.5 to 78.5, and how many fell between 66.5 and 78.5 minutes. And you can see here, oh, there's 3. Okay. 3 calls on the phone that were between those amount of times. Okay. So there's a range here, whereas bar graphs are just, it's red, it's orange, it's yellow, it's purple. So they look very similar, and you make them in a very similar way, but because of these differences, one is called a histogram, one is called a bar graph. Okay. You also notice some visual differences, that there are some gaps here between the bars, and with histograms there are no gaps. So a few things. And on the y-axis, they both kind of measure how often or how frequent. That's what this F is for frequency. Okay. So you'll have that for all your histograms. The y-axis will be the frequency. And this is kind of frequency. It's like number of students or how many. So similar, but not exactly the same. So we're just going to go over one example of how to make these and explain the differences between the two. So you've gotten the homework and a piece of graph paper. So you're going to do all these on graph paper. So get that in front of you, and we'll go ahead and create one of these. There we go. Okay. So it says for each of the sets, construct a frequency table or histogram. Okay. And on graph paper, and it says to use these intervals. Now, I'm going to go over a few more things you want to always abide by, and one of them is you always do equal intervals. So 0 through 9, that's 10 numbers, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus 0 is 10 numbers. So each category has to have 10 numbers, equal amounts. So you couldn't say 0 to 5 and then 6 to 20, right? Equal amount. It's okay to have a category that is 0, that has 0 frequency. Okay, you have to stay in order. So you can't go from 0 to 9 and say, oh, there's nothing from 10 to 19 and leave it off. You would still put it there and just have nothing to record. Okay? So let's take a look at just the first one. And we're going to construct a frequency table. So we're going to figure out how much of each category. So our categories are going to be of this nature, categories of 10. So what is the lowest and the highest data point here for number 1? 75 is the lowest, so and 100 is the highest. So that lets me know where should I start my intervals. So since 75 is the highest, I'm going to start at 70 to 79. And I'm going to go all the way up until I include 100. So I'm going to go, the next interval would be 80 to 89. Next interval is 90 to 99. And it might be tempting to say, oh, we only have one that's 100. Could we just make this 100 and not have to do another one? And again, that's one of the rules. You have to have the same increment. So we do have to make another one that's 100 to 109. Okay, so you do have to keep those increments the same. Okay, this is the frequency table. So I'm going to tally how many of each. And basically, this is anything that's 70-something, anything that's 80-something, anything that's 90-something, anything that's 100 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we just go down the list and cross it off as we go so we don't record anything twice. So we got 82, I'm going to tally under the 80 column. 75, so tally 1 under the 70 column. 99, 90 column. 77 again. Just going to keep on going. 92, 95, 89, 94, 100, 97. Now, the fifth count, you usually put a slash across the first 4, and that's a group of 5. It'll make it easier to count up if there's a lot of groups. Okay, so fifth slash, always do sideways. Okay, and then we go to 80, 86, 89, another fifth, so I'm going to side. Okay, 78, and 98. Okay, so that's our frequency table. Okay, so far, so good. Next, let's make a histogram using that information. Okay, so it's going to be handy to have a straight edge of some sort. Doesn't have to be a ruler, but anything straight, even a folded piece of paper would help. Or side of your phone might work. Okay. Or a business card, gift card, something of that nature, debit card. Okay. Take the graph paper that you got, and then using those frequencies, we'll make the histogram. Okay. Now, just as, I'll label this number 1, just as these are equal intervals, when you're making your histogram, you want to make each bar the same width. So we want to decide ahead of time, visually, like, okay, you're going to make each of these 3 squares wide when you're graphing this. Now, you could do 2 and you could do 4. It's not important how many squares. It's important that they're the same each one. So you don't want to have some of the bars that are skinnier than others. So I'm going to say 3 squares each. So I need a total of 12 squares, 3 times 4, all the way across. So I'm just going to go down here and draw horizontally 12 squares. There's 3, 6, 9, and 12. I'll kind of mark these so I can see where the bars will be. And vertically, what are the frequencies? We have 3, 5, 6, and 1. So the highest I need to go up to is 6. So you can count by ones, just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or if you have enough room, you can count by every 2 squares. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I got enough room to do that. And again, it's not wrong or right if you use 2 squares or 1 square. It's all up to you, the creator. You can make it any way you want. Okay. So, kind of like the box plot, the first step is to get the scale right. And you got to figure out what you're counting by vertically and horizontally. And let's go ahead and put in our intervals. We got 70 to 79 here. 80 to 89 here. 90 to 99. And 100 to 109. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, I knew to stop at 6 because that was my highest count. So you're looking kind of like a min and a max. You're looking at, well, what's the highest, what's the lowest, so I know how high I need to count up to in both directions. Give you a second to get that all jotted down. So let's go ahead and put in the frequencies for each one. So the 70 through 79 is 3. So we have a frequency of 3. So again, I'm going to use my straight edge and go to 3 on this one. Go down. And you can, yeah, let's just stick with that. And then we go to the next one, and we have from 80 to 89 is a frequency of 5, so we'll go up to 5. Again, it's 3 squares across. There we go. And 90 to 99 is a frequency of 6, so that goes all the way to the top. And lastly, for the 100 to 109, there's only one. That's going to be right here. And there we go. There's our histogram. Almost completed. You should shade these in some fashion. So there's where the different colors can come in. You can have these each a different color, and then also make these a different color, the corresponding same color. Okay. Now, if you don't have colors, you could always just shade them differently. So you can shade the first one horizontally, like this. Right, and then maybe shade the next one diagonally going this way. Just give it a little bit of character. Right, and maybe diagonally this way for the next one. And then finally, the last one, you could be vertical. You could also put designs. You can put like a bunch of little circles in here and then little stars in here. You know, anything that just sets them apart from one another. Okay, now there's one thing that's missing. What is this a graph of? If you just look at your histogram, what is this a histogram of? See, there's no labels, there's no title, so we want to be able to look at this and know exactly what is this telling us. Okay, so look back at the original problem. You know, it's 70 to 79 what? 80 to 89 what? What are those standing for? What do those mean? Okay, and then we can say up here, it's like this is a number of games 1. Okay, number of games 1. So we'll go down here and we're actually going to label this number of games 1. Okay. The y, the vertical here, is always going to be frequency. Okay, so you can just put F for frequency, or you could just turn it sideways and write out frequency. So that looks a lot better, a lot clearer. Okay, this is the number of games won and how many they won. Okay, so they won 3 different times. They won 3 games that's 70 to 79 wins. 5 different times they had 80 to 89 wins. 6 different times they had 90 to 99 wins, and 1 time they had 100 to 109 wins. Okay, there's one thing missing. Who had these wins? And under what conditions? So you're going back, that's your title. So it says, oh yeah, Los Angeles Angels with Mike Scioscia as the coach. So we could say LA Angel wins with Mike Scioscia. Okay. Now it's complete, and that's often left off. So you don't want to say, well, all that information is on here, so that means I don't have to write it. So you're going to have a separate paper with a bunch of histograms, and anybody should be able to look at just your paper with the histograms and know exactly what they mean. And that goes for every graph and every table you ever make. You don't want to leave this off. Okay? Unless we're doing general stuff with just equations and not a word problem, you won't have the labels. But otherwise, a word problem, something realistic, you always want to have what it is that you've graphed or charted. Okay, so that's one complete problem. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time. Neatness does count, so accuracy is important too. Because I gave you a lot of guidelines as far as using the same scale. Remember, it's okay for one of these to be 0. So if we didn't have any that were 80 to 89, we just have a 0 here with a blank, and then it just start off with 90, so that you'll see that happen. Make sure they don't overlap, so you don't want to put 70 to 80 and then 80 to 90, because we wouldn't know where to put 80. If we had 80 in both of these categories, we wouldn't know, should we put the 80 here or the 80 here. So you see how it goes from 79 to 80, does not overlap. That's important as well when you're counting up. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys work on the rest of them. I'll come around and check your box plots number 2 from the computer yesterday. Tomorrow you'll do a review doing the box plots and the histograms on Google Sheets, just like we did yesterday. We'll practice how do you do this on the computer so you can make these and put them in presentations and reports and things like that, you know, and change the colors as needed. Okay, so you got the rest of the period to work on that, and just have your homework out on your desk, and I'll come around in a moment.